So let me share a story of my own. So I left with my family and moved from a communistic state when I was about 10 for New York. We set off with 2 suitcases, no language capacity at all, and no place to go to either. So we, embarked on a plane and sort of landed, and within this experience, it was not only frightening, but also rather bizarre for the age I was. But then in the middle of it, I got, I think, one of my first most beautiful gifts that has shaped my life. I got the gift of kindness and care and connection. So on a street in Brooklyn, there is a pub, and that pub was run by an Irishman and his wife. And those people took us in. They took us in, and at the back of the pub, there was a room in which they would house their Thanksgiving once a year, which is why I love Thanksgiving. But we got to sleep there on the floor while my father went to try to find a job and try to find a flat for us. And in the period of those 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, John, every day, this elderly Irish man made me a lovely breakfast. He made me a fried egg, good, very crispy bacon, a piece of hot dog that only some people can make, where you slice the hot dog and put it on the grill, and a piece of orange, a glass of orange juice. And every day I would have this at a table at the back where we slept, with his wife, who was in the very odd, sort of severe stages of kidney disease, so she had her legs amputated. And she was sitting across from me, and to be honest, I don't remember her name, and I always thought, why don't I? And it's because I was scared shitless of her amputated legs. But I would sit there every day, and this couple, in this period where I'm sure they probably saw a frightened child, no parents, they were out there trying to figure out what we were going to do. They gave me a sense of safety. And that is something really beautiful. They gave me a true sense of safety, not maybe through what they did, but how they were with me. So they were really kind. They didn't probe me with questions all the time, how you're feeling, or try to make hand gestures because I couldn't really quite understand them. They didn't try to fill every moment of space, or pause with something. Maybe, would you like an orange juice or, a ginger ale or something? They just allowed me to be. But somehow under their presence, I did feel safe, or safe enough not to have a major freak out, which you could imagine probably I could do. And so this is very interesting because, you see, in psychology, when we look at early attachment theory, when we look at how kids come out to grow up okay, when as a neuroscientist I look at how a brain is wired to be okay, we learn that safety is very important. In fact, it's so important that kids that do not get the right level of attachment as children have lower IQs, they are less able to control emotions, and many of them will lack the skills of attunement to how we normally are, okay? And this, of course, will potentially damage the sorts of relationships they can have for the rest of their lives, and also for the way they can be at work. Now, of course, we can do some work on this in therapy, but it is really important. So safety really, really matters for the way our brains actually form and how well they function. And so there is a need for safety and care. And also we know that in neuroscience, when we are frightened and when we are scared, there's a part of our brain that sort of takes over and hijacks us. And it hijacks us into one of 3 core sort of responses. You'll see it in an animal kingdom. We, 1, freeze. Maybe I don't exist, I'm not there. We flee, if we can, or we try to get away, or in the worst case scenario, we fight. Now, of course, none of these responses are particularly equipping us with a sense of confidence and resilience, and none of them as well make us happy, Have you ever been happy when you were trying to fight, or when you were running away and when you were scared? I doubt it. So while fear has its place, for sure, evolutionarily, we actually don't really want to be hijacked by it. Because the one thing that fear does, which is sort of so interesting, is that it blocks our access to all the higher areas of the brain that give us awareness, that give us our ability to choose, that give us our ability to pause and actually do something better, right? So not too good. And I guess the antidote to that sort of fear-led response, in my world, is safety. And a safety that comes from genuine connection and care is actually a safety that is somatic. You know, when little babies get that, they don't get it through necessarily words. They don't even have the capacity yet to understand language. But they have a capacity to absorb something that is in the ether of space. Something that we've been kind of experiencing all along today. So that is really interesting because you see, like you, I observe the world, and like you, I look at who's elected. And I believe that the world is actually rigged for more and more fear. Fear of all sorts. People are afraid of being not loved. People are afraid of being not good enough. People are afraid of just doing anything wrong. And even for some people, the very way of their life feels like it's being threatened, which of course is going to make them be ever more fearful, ever more aggressive. And that is not a good kind of world. So I think what the world really needs is for all of us to learn how to practice the skills of care and connection that give us the sort of opposite of that fear. So if the fear-driven brain does its own protective things, that's fine. It's got its place. But let's also do the opposite. So today I brought you a piece of exercise that I'm very excited to share with you to practice love, care, and connection. How does that sound? It's a very easy exercise to do, so that's really good because it'll be easy to remember. And I can guarantee you that it will definitely transform your life. It will change the way you connect with your kids, it will change the way you connect with your boyfriend or girlfriend, and even your freaky, weird boss. And your neighbor too. Let's not forget the neighbors because they're really, really important, right? So, this exercise is called Kind Eyes. And I'm going to invite you to close your eyes so I can take you through it, but it won't take very long, just about a minute. So do close your eyes, and I'd like you to imagine, you might put your feet on the floor and all that if you wish, but basically just imagine that you are being looked at by a pair of eyes with complete and utter delight. Complete and utter acceptance and love and kindness and a sense of worth, not because of who you are, but just because you're a human being. And you actually deserve your natural space just to be there. And as this pair of eyes, it could be, someone you know, someone you feel that loves you, or it could be even a stranger. It could be your little 6-month-old puppy. But that pair of eyes does something to your body, and I'd like you to notice what's going on in your body. I'd like you to notice how your spine might expand, or how come there might be just a little bit more space, or perhaps how you're even growing and strengthening your shoulders and lifting your head a little bit because you feel your dignity has grown up a bit. You might even feel that you can draw on the roots of all your ancestors, or your family members, all the people who are part of your human story. So do feel that within you. And as you're feeling it, I'd like you to now think of one person in your life. It could be your neighbor, could be your partner, could be your teacher, that you could bring the same sort of kind, soft eyes to, next time you're interacting with them. So I'd like you to bring up maybe the picture of that person, or it could even be a stranger. Thank you very much for going through that experience. Now, how many times do I see in schools kids being afraid of who they are because they're afraid of being bullied? I have seen and heard many times on buses kids literally being bullying to one another and being very aggressive. How many times kids worry about not fitting in? And how many times in the workplace do people not put their hand up or question something because they're really afraid they'll get sacked? Or they'll be, sort of put off on the side as the troublemaker, not the one to put forward for anything. And also, with decision leaders around the world, many decision leaders, in fact, are really bad at making decisions because, in fact, they're afraid. They're afraid of getting it wrong because then the finger goes and says, it's you because you're the leader, right? So we're all afraid. And if you look around like me, when I take the train in London or when I walk, majority of people look down at their shoes. Do you know why people look down at their shoes? Because they're afraid. I remember if our eyes meet, I am actually afraid of connecting to you because you might look back at me and say, what the hell are you looking at? It could be conflict. So we're actually afraid of connection. And I want to invite you into the Kind's Eyes exercise very often because you see, kids and adults, we don't do what other people say we should do. We tend to do what we see other people practice, don't we? And so for me, a school of tomorrow is a school that has more care and connection. Because in a school that has more care and connection, we certainly have less fear, we have far less fighting, and we have far less fleeing. So we don't have kids who tell their parents, I'm off to school, and become truant. And that's really important, okay? They're actually protected in a way. And so that isn't just true for schools, but of course it's extremely true for families. Because many families have conflict. Many kids fear being at home. Many kids do not come home to safe households. So these skills are actually really important in terms of how we can manage this thing up here that we have. And so I'm devoting my time and my mission to helping people to connect the heart and the mind by running a global program that invites people to effectively say, I'm no longer afraid to do the things I want to do. So very much like Dave and other speakers today, I am encouraging people to say yes to things more and not to necessarily norm down, because I don't think much comes from norming down. I think a lot comes from actually sort of challenging things and thinking again. And education ought to do that for us. So I want you to remember the Kind's Eyes exercise every time that you are in a conflict, that you might be angry, that you might react badly towards someone else, where you will invite, I guarantee you, more violence, more problems, and no solution. And I want you to remember Kind Eyes when you're in your best moment, in your average day, because there are many people around you, as Emma said, who might be having a crap day. And in fact, they actually need your kind eyes. They need your mercy, your kindness. They need you to sort of just give them that acknowledgement that they're still worthy, that they're okay. And actually, if we all do that for each other, if we do that in our communities, it will be a better world. It'll be a more peaceful world and a more equal world. So I do invite you to remember the kind eyes, because that's what I got from John and his wife. I got kind eyes. Thank you very much.